week's episode of The Rolling Girls. There's action. Lots of action. Heart-pulsing, groundbreaking, earth-shattering, badass action. If you like that type of stuff in your anime, you need to check out this series. It's a lot of fun. It's basically the Looney Tunes on crack. But what I really loved about this episode is that it surprised me, because my review of the very first episode, I made the unfair comparison that it's very similar to the other anime series called Kill La Kill, mostly in the stylings and what the characters actually look like. And I can sort of see that a little bit more in this episode, but I got more of like an FLCL Fully Cooley vibe from this week's episode, and more of kind of like an old school anime cartoon vibe. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that most of the characters in the series are outright indestructible. It really doesn't matter that the propellers are stuck on this roller coaster and they're about to be sent to their doom, because they fly off constantly in massive explosions. In fact, there was one shot this week which I feel was maybe one of the most creative shots I've ever seen in an anime series, period. There was a scene at the end of the episode where Matcha Green and Shigeo are getting ready to conclude their battle, and their power is so great that they blow everybody away. And we've already seen this before, but we actually get to see it from the perspective, the POV perspective, of one of the characters, in particular Nozomi. And I like how it starts out slow, she starts to explode up in the air, you see other people around her, and that's when you realize, oh, this is from her point of view when she's getting blown away by these attacks. And I just thought that was a really creative scene. Another thing that I really liked about this episode is that it's basically getting ready to set up the real premise of the show. And I thought so in my first review that it's probably not really going to focus too much on Matcha Green and Shigeo. It's probably going to focus more on these girl characters who were formally introduced in this week's episode, and you'll definitely get to see a lot of that in the intro, which was actually done by the cast themselves. They sung the opening song, and I'm just kind of indifferent to it. It definitely gives off kind of a K-On! Vibe, but that's not really all that bad. What I will say is, it's all about that action this week. They immediately pick up from the last one. Matcha Green is revealed to be Masami. Big shock there. Nozomi seems like she's the only one who didn't really know. And this just gives us an excuse for a great action scene where the roller coaster is about to crash and everybody's getting slung off of it, especially that one crocodile guy, whose name actually is Crocodile, and I thought that was really funny, and I really wanted to see his face when his mask was flying off, and as he was trying to hold on to it, it opened up and acted like an umbrella and sent him flying, and one of his friends jumped after him in another really well-animated scene. It's funny, because you want to feel dread for these characters, because they're about to be sent to their deaths, but just the fact that they're flying off and they're just fine, and they even comment on it, they're like, we do this all the time, it's not really that big a deal, shows that this show is one that you don't really need to take too seriously. However, they're still trying to build on the world and on the backstories of these characters, in particular those of Matcha Green and Shigeo, who apparently had confrontations when they were much younger, and Shigeo went through like a period where she wanted to be a hero, and then slowly but surely was corrupted into the evil version that we see her as now. And then we just had them fight, which is awesome. The setting alone is great because it's a big amusement park, so there's just a lot of room for creative battle scenes, like when they're fighting on the roller coaster rails, where Shigeo now has this different weapon, which is like this weird metallic whip, which has a weird like flower right at the end of it. It's really freaking awesome. And then they just start doing hand-to-hand combat. And there's this one scene where Matcha Green gets the crap punched out of her stomach, and she starts to slowly start to heave up, and she's about to throw up. And she's right in Shigeo's face, and she releases this, basically this blast of puke right in her face, which is just like a big devastating beam, like something out of Dragon Ball Z. And then she follows it up with one of the most badass roundhouse kicks I have ever seen, which slams her into the ground, and the imprint is actually in the shape of a big heart. Just, again, just the hilarity of this show altogether. But basically what happens is Shigeo and Matcha Green are now hospitalized after their amazing battle, and it's going to be up to Nozomi to take care of the propeller's business. They're going to actually have to go around and mediate a lot of different battles, and she's going to have some company. Her friend Yukina is going to be joining her. There's another new character by the name of Ai, who seems very energetic and mischievous. And then we have that one mysterious blonde girl who has the gas mask, and her name is Chihaya. She's just absolutely adorable. The entire cast is, and I didn't really think it was going to center around them at first. I thought it was really going to be all about Masami and Shigeo, but I'm really hoping that they're going to be able to keep the action scenes intact, because they're really well done. They're definitely one of the highlights of this series, and probably the thing I like most about it. So, what's the rundown? On this week's episode of The Rolling Girls, it was really good. I liked it a lot more than the first episode. The first episode to me was basically just pretty animation, and that was it. This week's episode is allowing me to appreciate this world a little bit more, but there's still a lot of vagueness to it. Like, we still don't really know, like, how the whole best and the rest thing works, how that coincides with the Moonlight Stones, which look like these little hearts, which I guess that's like their badge of badassery, so to speak. But the reason to check out this week's episode is to see the epic rematch between Matcha Green and Shigeo, and it was awesome. It went a little longer, there was a lot of creativity with the battle, the fighting choreography is great, and I just love all of the little effects. Like, whenever they punch someone, there's a big, like, heart ring which explodes around them, and it just looks so cool. Or when she actually stops the actual roller coaster, she just punches it and stops it in an instant, and it leaves this massive impact, which is just so cool looking. And then there's that big papier-mâché robot, which looks like Matcha Green, which didn't even seem like it was going to be threatening. When then that thing starts crashing towards them, it's destroying everything in sight. Nozomi's about to be killed by the thing, and then Matcha Green gets in there, punches it, and then it explodes and pops into a ton of crazy directions. It's just so insane. This is an amazing show in terms of the animation. I love the art direction, and I'm really interested to see what else they're going to do with the action in this series. The actual story itself is still a little confusing and a little too over the top and ridiculous, but it sort of goes in line with like what it's trying to emulate. Like I said, it's kind of like Kill La Kill, FLCL, Fully Cooley. It's got that vibe going for it, and it's obviously a series not to be taken too seriously, and that's because it doesn't seem like the characters can die just because of the things that they can withstand. I just think that's really interesting, and I think it's really cool that they're all riding on motorcycles. Maybe that's why it's called the Rolling Girls. They're going to be rolling all across the place. All I know is I'd really like to see more of Matcha Green and Shigeo in the future. I know they're going to have to make some sort of return, but for the time being, it looks like they're going to be hospitalized, and we got a new set of brand new characters who are going to travel the world, and that's when things are probably going to get ridiculous. I pray we're going to get action just as good as we saw in this episode. I don't think they're going to abandon it just like that. Still, there's a lot of promise for this show, you know? I really don't know where it's going. It's an original anime concept, so it's going to be a complete surprise every single time I watched it. But this week's episode was really good. Great production value, amazing battles with lots of choreography, tons of funny moments. Crocodile is absolutely hilarious. I love that interesting perspective shot with Nozomi getting blown away by the big attacks, and then we finally get our main cast at the end, and they're getting ready to go on a big adventure. So there's a lot of promise for this show. We're just going to have to tune in and find out. So this week's episode I thought was really high quality stuff. It was a little slow in the first half of the episode, but when that action kicked in, it was amazing. And that entire roller coaster scene was animated so well, just like the action. So I'm going to give this week's episode a 4 out of 5. Really high quality episode that you should check out if you saw the first episode. And if you're just deciding to get into the Rolling Girls anime series, now is the time. There's 2 episodes. They're both really good, and they will get you pumped up for the rest of the show because it's just absolutely ridiculous. And it's a lot of fun. So check it out, guys. Rolling Girls, good episode. Thank you guys for watching my review. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up. And before you guys leave, please tell me what you thought about this week's episode of The Rolling Girls. Did you like the action in this week's episode? What do you think of the storyline? And where do you think it's going with all of the brand new characters getting on their bikes and getting ready to go on an adventure? Please tell me in the comments section below. And remember, if you guys have not subscribed to our channel, you can do that by clicking on the channel icon right up here. It's really easy to do, and if you do that, you'll be able to check out all of our latest anime and manga reviews, and it's winter 2015, and there's a lot of cool shows airing right now, so make sure and check out our channel. We are releasing a ton of awesome new reviews, and we also have a few new projects planned, so stay tuned for those. You guys can also follow us on Facebook and on Twitter. Thank you guys again for watching. Super Kami Guru 9000, out.